Thanks for the introduction, Nakwi. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Tanaka Mapandera. I'll be giving a webinar on how to deploy Kubernetes on AWS using Terraform. If you attended part one, you'll remember that I was having issues with my auto-scaling configuration, and that resulted in several different instances being spun up on my AWS account, which prevented me from actually spinning up Kubernetes. Luckily, this time around, I'm not experiencing that issue. I was able to get the demo working, and I'm excited to show you, how to, carry out this task. So just a quick introduction. My name is Tanaka. I work for Anant Corporation here in Washington, D.C. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years, and my official title is a platform engineer. So a little overview. Last time around, we kind of did a little bit of an intro into Kubernetes, what it is, what it's used for, what it can do, and a few use cases. Again, if you'd like to revisit that webinar, you can find that on our YouTube as well as our blog site. This time around, I'm just going to do a quick review of Terraform, quick review of Kubernetes, and then we're going to jump right into this demo. So Kubernetes, what is it? Kubernetes is an open source container orchestration platform that automates many of the manual processes involved in deploying, managing, scaling containerized applications. It was originally developed and designed by engineers of Google, but is now maintained by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which is a Linux organization created to advance container technology. Kubernetes gives you the ability to cluster together groups of hosts running Linux containers and helps you to easily and efficiently manage those clusters. Kubernetes clusters can spin up a host across on-premise, public, private, or hybrid clouds. For this reason, Kubernetes is an ideal platform for hosting cloud-native applications that require rapid scaling, real-time platform, data streaming through Apache Kafka. So, and what is Terraform? Terraform is an open source infrastructure as a code tool that allows you to build, manage, and change infrastructure safely and efficiently. Terraform uses the HashiCorp configuration language, or ACL for short, to manage its environments and works across all major cloud providers, including AWS, Google Cloud Provider, and Azure. To run an application or to launch a data center, Terraform uses configuration files that describe the components needed to complete the task. Terraform creates an execution plan outlining how it will reach a desired state, and that then builds that desired infrastructure. When configurations change, Terraform identifies the change and creates incremental action plans to be applied to your environment. Within these configuration files, Terraform uses providers to integrate with different services. Terraform is compatible with the vast majority of providers, many of those that focus on cloud applications. And with that, we're going to jump right into the demo. Let's see, so minimize that. Then we're going to open up. Okay, so there are a bunch of prerequisites that we need to install to get our environment set up. These prerequisites include an AWS account with IAM permissions listed on the EKS module documentation. We need to install and configure AWS command line interface. We need to make sure that we have the AWS IAM authenticator. We need to have the CubeControl, which is the Kubernetes command line interface installed. And we also need wget needed to fetch our EKS model. These prerequisites only require a handful of commands, so they shouldn't be that hard to set up. I won't be going over them in this demo, but all of the commands will be included in my blog post for the webinar. So for this demo, we're going to be using a repository created by HashiCorp themselves. Within this repository, you'll find 6 major files that we're going to be using to get our environment set up in AWS. First of which we'll have the vcp.tf. This is where we're going to be provisioning our VCP, our subnets, and our availability zones using the AWS VCP module. Next, we have the security groups.tf. This is where we're going to provision the security groups for our EKS cluster. Next is pretty much the big one, the EKS cluster.tf. This is where we're going to be provisioning all the resources, such as our auto-scaling groups that are required to set up EKS cluster in the private subnets and Bastion servers to access the cluster using the AWS EKS model. If we take a look at line 14 over here, if we take a look at line 14 real quick, you can see that in our auto-scaling section, we've declared 3 nodes to be created in our Kubernetes instance. You'll see those later on once we spin up our Kubernetes dashboard. The other file worth looking is our outputs.tf, which defines the output configuration. And lastly, we have versions.tf. Pretty much this sets the required versions for all the services and modules that we're going to be using today. So overall, we're going to have 1 virtual cloud, private cloud, 3 availability zones, and 6 subnets, 3 public and 3 private. Now, let's get started in our terminal. So I actually went ahead and ran some of the preliminary commands, such as Terraforming It, with which initializes our configuration files, and Terraform apply, which executes our configuration files. I did this because it takes at least 10 minutes to provision the EKS cluster in AWS, and I wanted to be respectful for your time. But again, it's just 2 simple commands, and as long as you are using the exact same repository as I am, you should be good to go. It is worth mentioning though, if you are going to be running this on Windows, there are 2 lines that you want to add to your repository, especially to your EKS-cluster.ts file. And pretty much you're just going to be telling Terraform here to wait for the cluster MD command to run through, because sometimes you know, it's pinging, it's trying to ping to the EKS cluster in AWS, and then oftentimes it'll just fail, but you just have to tell the program, hey, just keep pinging until that works. And then also, because the providers with Terraform were designed for Linux, there is no kind of native interpreter on Windows, so you just have to make sure that you're telling your system to point to that interpreter, and then you should be good to go. So if I open up terminal, so I'll just scroll up a little bit here. So again, this is kind of where I initialized the repository, Terraforming It. Come down here, and then that's when I ran Terraform apply. It'll kind of just go through your configuration file, say like, okay, you want to make all these changes. Obviously, everything that's highlighted in green just tells you everything that's going to be added. These are all the resources that are going to be created on AWS. At the very bottom, it'll kind of give you a prompt saying like, okay, do you want to go through this plan? You say yes, and then you're good to go. So hopefully by the time you've run those first 2 commands, you should find yourself here. And then pretty much it'll just tell you, okay, this is what's happened. It'll tell you at the very top, 51 resources added, kind of give you the details of different names for availability groups, security groups, clusters, and so on. So next, what we're going to be doing, so now that we have our EKS cluster running, we need to configure CubeControl, which is a command line interface tool that we're going to be using for our Kubernetes cluster. And we're going to be running that with this following command, AWS, okay. And search for the region. So region, obviously something that I declared within our configuration files, and it's up to you to choose which region you prefer. And then the name is going to be this value right here. Gonna go back, make sure everything's set. Okay. Yes. Type that in. All right, we'll try that again. make sure. All right, awesome. So yeah, sorry about that. Basically what this command does is going to connect to our EKS cluster we just deployed on AWS. It's going to fetch the access credentials, and then it's going to save them to our local machine. Please note that you'll need to, change the command to kind of fit your configuration, depending on whether or not you go and customize your own configuration files. Next, to verify that our Kubernetes clusters is configured correctly and running, we're going to deploy and access our Kubernetes dashboard. But before that, we also need to download and unzip the Kubernetes metrics server since it's not deployed by default within our EKS cluster. To do that, we're going to use the following command. Once you run that command, you'll kind of see a few messages saying, no such file directory found. And then at the very end, it'll kind of tell you exiting with failure status. Don't worry about that. It will not be needed for this demo, and we should be good to go. Next, we'll deploy it using the following command. Awesome, seems like everything was successful there. And then finally, we'll just run another command to just check and see that that service was deployed successfully. Awesome, so then also we can see here the metric server ready 101 to date and 12 seconds ago. So we're good to go. So then now it is finally time to actually set up our Kubernetes dashboard. And we will do so with the following command. And basically this command is just gathering all the resources necessary for the dashboard. Once that has been created, just have one last command to input, and we should be good to go. So now we can head over to this server in our dashboard, in our browser, sorry. Should be good. Yep. And already we can see it's a Kubernetes dashboard. So before you're actually able to see all the resources and instances that you've spun up in your Kubernetes cluster, it's going to ask you to sign in. Because we are using a service account, we do not have the option to use kubeconfig, so we're actually going to be using a token. So to do that, we're going to go back to terminal. And oh yes, so it is important that you keep this window running. So you're just going to have to open a new git bash window. We're going to execute the following command. Basically what we're doing here is we're going to create a new cluster role binding, which will then allow us to create the token key following. And we're going to create the token key with the following command. Let's give it a few seconds, and there it is. All right, so finally we have our token. Make sure to copy that. So we can head back to our Kubernetes dashboard, come here, paste it in, and we should be able to sign in. And voila, now we can see our Kubernetes dashboard. So I just want to take you back real quick to my repository. And if you remember here when we were declaring the worker groups, we had two that were 2T small and one that was 2T medium. So that should be reflected here on Kubernetes. So yeah, one 2T medium and then two 2T small. So that's awesome. So obviously that proves that we're able to connect to our cluster that we have spinning up on AWS. I do think we have a little bit of time, so I will show you something that I'm working on for the next webinar. which will probably spinning up an app on Kubernetes. Obviously, from this dashboard, you're able to do it, just by clicking a few buttons over here. But wouldn't it be more fun to just kind of try that through Terraform? So we can see, close that real quick. That, I'm gonna CD back out into another directory. This already should, let's see, do I already have to run Terraforming It? Okay. Apply. Should be good to go. Let's see. The app that we are running is Nginx. And yeah, there's just an example app of all the possibilities that you can run. But part of the demo next time would be kind of managing the Terraform resources that we have up and running. I think right now, just because I'm using the service account, I'm a little bit limited there. Let's see. I wonder if we can see it already. Oh, of course. Sorry about that. Totally forgot. I need to go back and run my server. So then that would be control. All right. Awesome. Okay. So you can see now we have deployed an app on Kubernetes, which is Nginx example. The reason I kept mentioning the service account is you'll see if I click on it, I actually cannot see the dashboard for this app. The same can be said for Kubernetes as well. And yeah, that has to do with the cluster role that we created earlier. I think it may have been, it's definitely tied because I'm using this service account, and I may have to change some permissions somewhere in some of the configuration files. And hopefully I'll be able to get that squared away by the time I have my full demo for how to manage your resources once you spun up the Kubernetes cluster and your dashboard. But that should do it for this demo. As always, a good practice when you're working with Terraform is to just make sure that you run Terraform destroy. Otherwise, all of your resources are going to stay up and running, in which case can be bad because they're just going to keep charging your account. Very end, I'll just ask you a little prompt. Are you sure you want to destroy all these resources? You'll say yes. And then it'll kind of go away and make sure that everything's down, from security groups to availability zones, all your VCPs. However, that is going to take a while. So in the meantime, I will go back to presentation and kind of wrap up. Apologies for that. And that brings us to the end of this webinar. Like I said, I'm really happy I was able to actually get Kubernetes up and running this time around. If you are interested in carrying out this demo, be warned that depending on how you change your configuration files, you may actually start to get charged on your AWS account, just because usually when you're using the free tier, you're supposed to be using the micro instances, but you saw we were kind of using the small and medium. It won't be too much. I do believe it's somewhere around 10 cents an hour, at least using this bare bone model. Obviously, if you're trying to kind of scale larger than what we did in this demo, and also start having more beefier applications, I'm sure the price will go up there. So it's always something to watch out there. But like I said, all of the commands will be included within my corresponding blog post for this. But just want to say thank you very much for coming out for this webinar. If you like what you saw or interested to partner up with, myself or anyone else at the team, don't be afraid to reach out to us. We're always looking forward to collaborate and work with people. And like my co-host said, we're going to be having a webinar tomorrow and the day after as well. So please do come back for those. And with that, are there any questions? Let's see if I can check the chat. What is the difference between using Terraform and Kubernetes providers or Terraform plus? Well, CubeControl is just the command line interface. So the providers, at least from my understanding, it's something that Terraform kind of downloads to your local repository or your project base whenever you're getting ready to deploy. But in terms of CubeControl, that's what allows you to kind of communicate, as you saw before, from local instance where I was saying, hey, computer, go to this AWS account, get these access credentials so that, we're able to fully communicate both locally and in the cloud, and etc. But at least from my understanding, I'm still kind of like in the process of, mastering Kubernetes and Terraform, but at least that's how I see it in my view. Can you do things with Terraform that you can do with Kubernetes or anything else? Yeah, Terraform is just one of the quote unquote infrastructure as a tool codes out there. I don't know if you guys were present for that, but last week I also gave a webinar on Ansible, which it's different from Terraform, but also has, a lot of similarities where it can help you kind of set up your infrastructure in this way and it helps you kind of to automate this process so you don't have to worry about, going out to get all these different modules, services, whereas you kind of just kind of state something. You'll say, hey, go out, fetch this, get this version of this thing, bring it back here, and then just deploy. And there are several others just outside of that, just outside of Terraform and Ansible. Like I said last time around, there is no clear winner between the two. It just depends on what you need it for your business. One could be better than the other. Both are open source. I will say that both free, relatively easy to use in terms of syntax. So I'm enjoying it a lot, and it seems like there's a good amount of content out there, as well as good documentation and starter kits. So yeah, if you are definitely interested, I do recommend that you take a look at Terraform, Ansible, and the like. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more questions come through. With that, I think I will be ending my webinar. Once again, I'd like to say thank you very much for everybody who joined today. I do hope you found this quite informative. And I would also like to say thank you for sticking out with me. Again, this was kind of two parts just because in the first round, I wasn't able to get it up and running just because you never really know what happens with AWS. But I'm really happy I was able to, nail this down this time around, and look forward to seeing you guys next time, where hopefully I'll be able to, really walk you through how to deploy an app, how to manage those resources, and maybe it will be able to fix the service account restrictions.